Welcome back to the Crypto Trends Podcast, where we cover all things cryptocurrency, blockchain, Web 3.0, and AI. I'm Robert Croke, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Armando Pantoja. Both of us and our amazing team are excited to bring you the best information, guidance, and strategies each and every Wednesday. So follow along, and please always remember to take notes and take action. Okay, so let's get into talking point number one. Crypto bulls believe Bitcoin may still have room to run due to ongoing demand for the spot Bitcoin ETFs and the effects of the recent halving. Industry watchers are skeptical that a spot Ethereum ETF will see the same level of success as Bitcoin ETFs, and regulatory clarity remains a significant hurdle, with investors closely monitoring presidential candidate statements and recent regulatory developments. So let's get into this, Armando. There's a lot going on in the space right now. Obviously, everyone is in panic mode. I joked with you yesterday that I need to open a 1-800 hotline for people so they can pay by the minute for me to talk them off the ledge. So let's get into this episode, because I think there's a lot to cover and a lot of fear to quell right now, because people are just so nervous and not understanding the age-old thing that we tell them, and that is, when in doubt, zoom out and look at the past. So let's get into this a little bit right now.
Yeah, I posted something, I think the day before yesterday, and I talked about how in a Bitcoin bull run, there's several retractions of 20% or greater. This is natural, right? And a lot of people are panicking. But the people who understand the history of the market and also how markets move are very optimistic, very bullish, because what we're seeing in the market now is that we're seeing a lot of the rich, the elite, and the banks buying up as these prices drop. And it's a positive sign. And I don't think the demand for Bitcoin, especially with the Bitcoin ETF, has been realized yet. I don't think retail involvement is anywhere near where it should be to push Bitcoin past 100, 200,000. And I always tell people, think about this. In 2021, everybody was talking about Bitcoin. You could go to the barber shop. I heard somebody talking about it at Starbucks one time. You don't hear a lot of that now. It's because retail involvement hasn't started yet. And that's the sign that we're going to have that exponential growth. And it hasn't started yet. So I think that's very positive for the price and future of the technology.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that we go in these large swings, these cycles, where everyone is talking about crypto and Bitcoin, and then they're not. And right now, it's strange to me, because a few months ago, when everything was doing really well and we were going into this bull market and things were moving along, everyone was talking about it. And then as soon as we have a retraction, instead of them being excited because of these drawdowns and these price opportunities and these pullbacks, they get fearful and they go the other way and they start selling everything. And I think that's one of the things that I struggle with the most. So for me, I just look at it, when we see these drawdowns, we see all this news, I look at it as positive sentiment, and the price action just hasn't caught up with it yet. I feel like that's been the case for months and months for us. We're seeing all of this great news, but yet we're still in this drawdown. And then the most recent price action, where we're seeing the markets plummet, is mostly due to the government selling with the Mt. Gox, with Germany, the US government, and people have to understand this is another form of market manipulation as well. And we'll get into that later in the episode. So I think with the current market conditions, with Bitcoin hovering around $57,000, $58,000 after peaking at $73,000 earlier this year, I think that it just suggests that there's potential for more upward movement as we head into the second half of 2024. And you and I have spoken about this many times, and that is, I think everyone thought the halving was going to happen. We were going to see a hockey stick straight up, and it never happens that way. And it could have been different this time around, but technically we are right on track. Usually it's 4 or 5 months after the halving, we see the bull market take off. We see this upward price action, and that's just not the case right now, and that's why I look at this as such a great buying opportunity.
Yeah, so what's on the horizon right now, a lot of people aren't talking about, is the Ethereum ETF is going to start trading here in the next probably next month or so. And I think a lot of people are underestimating the impact on the market. It's going to help Bitcoin a lot, because now you have 2 ETFs, and it's going to bring in more retail investors, but it's also going to push Ethereum up a lot. Yep. And a lot of people, I think, like I said, they're underestimating the impact of this. this. A lot of analysts are saying it won't have the same impact as Bitcoin and all this other stuff, but I think that Ethereum has a clearer use case to the average person. With the staking, with how it works, with it being more or less digital oil, I think the average person can understand that more. And I think that it's a huge opportunity for a lot of people. And like I always said, is I think Ethereum has the potential, and I believe that, is to be the #1 crypto in the world.
Yeah, I'm with you, Armando. I've been saying a lot lately that I believe that Ethereum and even XRP are the easiest 10Xs in the coming months. And everyone just has to understand that with the election coming up, the news of this big sell-off with Mt. Gox and the government, the German government and all that, that there is more to the markets than what they're seeing. And they just have to stay strong and stick with their investment thesis to get through this, because I believe we're still going to see this huge transfer of wealth, and we're going to see a tremendous bull run in the next 18 months, just like we've said all along. And I believe it really is going to start in Q3, late Q3, Q4 of this year into the spring, and that's when everything will really start to move. And there's really a lot, if you think about Ethereum, it just plays such a critical role in the crypto ecosystem with smart contracts and DeFi. And I just think that it has such a great upside potential that I don't worry about these short-term hurdles that we're dealing with, because maybe the Ethereum ETFs don't get out of the gate like the Bitcoin ETFs did, but that doesn't matter to me, because we're in a different market cycle right now. Things are down, everyone's worried, there's a lot of fear in the market, and that could cause institutional investors to pause a little bit and get a little bit slower start into the Ethereum ETFs. But I think overall, we're still going to see them crush in the coming years, which then helps the retail investor in these markets.
Yeah, speaking about the downturn, is that you talk about this often, is that it almost seems like this is a copy of what we've seen over the last 10 years.
Absolutely.
Every single time the halving comes,
Yep.
everybody thinks it's going to be a next day effect, and it's not next day. It takes 4 months, right? And a month or two, people start giving up, and it's not happening. They go back to their regular lives, forget about it. Then 2 months later, they see an exponential growth. They try to jump back in, but they missed a lot of the big gains because they were not watching when the drops happen right after the halving. There's always a post-halving drop, and it's always a different reason. It could be this, it could be China. It's always something, and then that's when the potential to buy is there. Right now, I bought almost a full Bitcoin yesterday because I know that I can double my money over the next 6 months. But one of the biggest things is two things that were hanging over Bitcoin for years is the empty Gox thing, right? Mt. Gox. So people knew that they would one day receive the money back or the Bitcoin back, and they would one day sell it. So that's gone now, right? So they're getting their funds back. They already got their funds back. So that's one of the biggest things that was hanging over the world of crypto and how big the effect would be. Second thing is regulatory issues. Yep. And that's about to be solved because we've seen both candidates take more or less positive stances on crypto. One a little bit more than the other one, but still both positive. When we get Mt. Gox out of the way and then we move on to the regulatory issues with the presidential candidates, and we get this election over, that's when we're going to see crazy growth in crypto and Bitcoin specifically, and Ethereum also. So I'm looking forward to this next, like you said, 18 months.
And one of the narratives that I want to reiterate that we talked about last week, I believe, is the Mt. Gox money. I don't think anyone is realizing if you get all of this money out of blue sky, out of thin air, from money you invested 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and then all of a sudden it's dumped into your account, everyone feels that money is just going to be dumped into the open markets. I don't see it that way, because if you think about it right now, if you have this massive windfall all of a sudden and you're a retail investor and you're still a crypto person, what are you going to do with it? I don't think people are going to just rush out and go sell it and put their money into Amazon stock. I think a lot of these people that have this crypto money are going to feel this new windfall, and they're going to want to trade it into altcoins and other stuff that they've been watching but haven't had the ability to do. So I think that is something that could play out in the coming months. It'll be by the end of this year, and really bolster the retail market in crypto as well. So I think that is something really important for everyone to consider consider when all of these Mt. Gox people get their money. So let's move on to the next point. Is crypto on the brink of a major transformation? Let's go over the bullets. Bitcoin is hovering around $60,000 with all these dips and rebounds. The market remains very highly volatile, causing panic among retail investors during these pullbacks. And volatility is inherent in crypto, and long-term potential remains solid. All right, folks, let's dive into the latest moves in the crypto markets as of the airing of this podcast. We've seen Bitcoin hovering around 60,000. We've seen all of these dips and rebounds, and we're seeing so many people asking if the bull run has come to an end or if this market is just taking a breather for the next leg up. Armando, I know you're going to eat this alive, so go ahead and take this away, because I can tell you I am wore out in the last 30 days of people saying, is the bull run over? What happened? I thought you said this. I thought you said that. And it's remarkable to me, with everything facing everyone that you see. We've got the presidents talking about cryptocurrency. It's literally a ping pong match with them on this. We have all of this adoption, ETFs, XRP winning their lawsuit, all of this incredible news, yet everyone thinks somehow the crypto market's just going to die off and go away. So give them your thoughts here.
So crazy, man, is that if you woke up in the morning and your house dropped 20% in value, would you panic and sell it?
Nope.
No, because you know that eventually it'll recover. People need houses. So eventually my house will recover and probably go past the amount that it was before. Nobody panics when their house goes down 10, 20%. It could be overnight. It doesn't matter. But for some reason, people do it with more liquid assets, stocks, crypto. They just panic. And like me and you both I've gotten more messages about the price of Bitcoin in the last 2 weeks than I've ever gotten almost.
Me too.
So when it goes up, you don't hear anything, right? When it goes down, that's when you hear all the messages.
Nobody ever sends me an Amazon gift card or buys me a jet ski when I tell them some ideas and give them some call outs and they make $100,000 in 3 months. They don't ever do anything like that. But as soon as it drops 20%, they're in my DMs, baby. Every single time, for sure.
What's so crazy is that people, it's almost a psychological thing. They could have bought Bitcoin at 20,000 and went up to 74. And let's say their account's at 100,000, right? In their mind, that's their money. Yep. I got $100,000, and it drops back down to 70, and when they only put in 20, 30, and then they'll say, I'm down 30,000. You're not down, but you're still up. But that's how a lot of, especially new investors, think. And then they panic during the knee-jerk reactions, panic during these pullbacks. But it pays to be patient. And like you say, it pays to, when you're in doubt, to zoom out and look at the bigger picture of where this market is going.
Yeah, I think the best thing people can do in turbulent markets is to be able to not look at their accounts 24/7. You mentioned people, if their house goes down in price and value 20%, they don't panic and sell it. You know why? Because there's not a little cool app that they can just look at their house minute by minute and see the value of that house and where it's going. And so that's why they have the patience with an asset like a home.
That's a good point.
Yes, but whereas where we live in an era of everything is at our fingertips and live, people can watch their accounts 24/7 and have these panic moments every single time they see the markets go up or down. And it goes from euphoria to fear and back and forth. And that is the mental landscape that people deal with on a daily basis. And that's a problem, because if you're not sticking with your plan, it is a vicious cycle. So many people buy high, the market corrects, they sell, then they sit on the sidelines. Then as soon as it goes back up, they buy high again, and then they sell, and they just don't understand. Just buy, dollar cost average in, and keep riding the wave. If you believed in Bitcoin a year ago and you believed in Bitcoin 6 months ago when it was up, then you should still believe in it now, because we're all looking for this adoption, the governmental oversight and regulatory framework, so everything can move forward smoothly. And I believe we're going to continue to see more and more advancement of this in the coming months, and we will be up and off and running fall, winter of this year, early into spring. So let's get into one of the next points that is probably the biggest reason we've seen all of this market turbulence recently, and that is Germany's aggressive selling spree of Bitcoin that has caused significant downward pressure in the price. And I think it's just really important for everyone. We talked about this before with Mt. Gox, Germany selling off a lot of Bitcoin. And it's so important for everyone to understand this, that these big moments are going to happen. And it can sometimes be just a greater form of market manipulation. Because one of the things that nobody's talking about right now is the fact that Germany sold off all of that Bitcoin. And now everyone was like, oh my God, the markets are crashing. We saw a huge pullback with Bitcoin fluctuating down into the mid 50s. And then all of a sudden, quietly, that no one knew about, is that Germany did an about face and then bought right back in. They did 180 and bought right back into the crypto markets, and nobody has talked about it. So I want to go through that a little bit because I thought that was crazy seeing that happen. So Armando, talk about them selling and why, and then we can touch further on the fact that it was so quiet in the news cycle that they then bought right back into Bitcoin once it went down, just like everyone else does. And this is just another form of market manipulation because we saw all the news cycle about them selling, but we didn't see anything about them buying back in.
Yeah, I mean, the news of them selling is exciting. It causes panic, but it also causes attention. So if you write an article about it, you go live about it, it causes people to look. But if you say they bought it back, it's not going to drive as much attention. So that's the reason why we haven't heard about it. But it is very significant that they bought back. It shows confidence in the market. It shows that they believe in Bitcoin long term, and they believe that at that price it was undervalued, right? They have some great people, I'm sure, doing the analysis for them to know when to buy back in. But I agree with you. It's a form of market manipulation. And the thing about, we have to think about all the governments over the world, right? A lot of them issue their own currency.
Yep.
So they don't really want Bitcoin to take over or crypto to take over. It's just something that they have to deal with. So what they want to do is they want to delay it as much as possible. With these pullbacks, they only do these types of things when the market is down or stagnant. They never do it when it's going up. The U.S. sells Bitcoin when it's down. You know, the U.S. is contemplating selling a big block of Bitcoin now.
What everyone, sorry to cut you off, but what everyone needs to understand is we see every single day people talking about Nancy Pelosi and all of Congress and how they have become the greatest traders ever known to be able to trade in the stock market and the crypto markets. And the reason for that is not because they're smarter than us, it's because they have the information before us. If we know a day, a minute, 10 minutes, a month, 6 months ahead of a big news approval or denial, guess what? Anyone can make really tremendous gains because of that. And that's the same thing that happens in cryptocurrency. We see these big names that can move markets and these governments that can move markets. None of this is done randomly. It is all done in a fashion to where they control the narrative of where the markets are going. And we just have to be able to be ahead of that news cycle and be able to prepare for the long term and not have those knee-jerk reactions, because in markets, equity markets, there's always going to be market manipulation, and you just need to be able to read between the lines, stay strong to your investment thesis, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, you can't complain about market manipulation because it's always there. Like I told people, every major industry on earth is manipulated, one way or the other. And we were talking about LeBron James getting Bronny. A lot of people are angry about that. And I told them, I said, every industry that makes billions of dollars is manipulated. To your eyes, you may not see that. You may think crypto's nothing is a free market.
Right.
People put in their friends, they help the people they know out, they help their family out. That's just how the world works. And you have to understand it and accept it to be able to be successful.
But I think it's important because everyone that follows along here and takes notes and takes action is going to be ahead of the curve on this information to be able to know what they should do for their money. Because remember, in life and in investing and building wealth and financial freedom, it's not fair. The game is rigged, and you can do your best by following podcasts like this, reading books, making sure you go to our lives and stay ahead of the curve so you can do your very best to give yourself the advantage. Because remember, you can't control what happens outside of your own house and your own brain and your own actions. All you can do is try to learn as much as possible to put yourself in the best situation. So let's get on to our next point. Anticipation grows for the spot Ethereum ETFs, and there's mixed predictions about what is going to happen. So if you look at analysts, there's a lot of buzz of the upcoming launch of the spot Ethereum ETFs, with some analysts on one side of the fence and others on the other. So many of them believe that we will see a ho-hum launch, and it won't be as impactful as the Bitcoin ETFs, and others believe that we could see a really good inflow into these ETFs right out of the gate. I believe the range is from $5 billion to $45 billion of inflows in the first year. And so I think it's important for everyone to understand that given the market conditions, I could see this being true where the Ethereum ETFs don't get out of the gate super fast with huge inflow because of the current market conditions and the fact that the Bitcoin ETFs have now tapered off a little bit and cooled off. That is because of the current market conditions. So I think it's important for everyone to understand that as they launch, it doesn't mean everything is going to be rainbows and unicorns right out of the gate because of the fact that the market conditions are different than when Bitcoin ETFs launched. So I guess talk about it a little bit, Armando. What are your thoughts? Where do you think we're going to see the inflows coming in, and what's next for this Ethereum ETF?
So I'm very optimistic about the Ethereum ETF. A lot of analysts are saying it could be between $5 billion and $45 billion that flows into this market into the first year. But there's an absence of the staking rewards, which a lot of analysts say could affect the price of Ethereum. Now, for people that don't know what staking is, crypto started with Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency ever. So they had to have a method in which they would secure the network. So they chose what's called proof of work.
Yep.
So every miner or every node or every computer on the network, they would perform a certain amount of work to be able to secure the network. And they would receive rewards for that work. And they would do this work via their processor, right? The processor would run, it would solve these complex puzzles, and these puzzles would secure the network, and they would receive rewards for doing it. That's what's called Bitcoin mining. So that's very, very energy intensive. There's been a lot of pushback because that takes a lot of energy because you're working your processor. So there's been a new method that's come out in the last few years, maybe a little bit over 5 years, called proof of stake. A lot of newer cryptos switched to that. Ethereum switched to proof of stake a couple of years ago. And what that means is that instead of doing that work, we're going to make you have to put your Ethereum into your computer, into your node, and that's how you secure it. So if you make a mistake in validating or securing the network, we're going to take a little bit of your Ethereum. So that gives people an incentive not to do anything crazy. And you're not going to try to, because you got so much Ethereum at stake.
Yep.
Right. So because you have your Ethereum into the network and it's securing the network, they pay you back 5 to 6% return.
Yep.
So that's an easy way to make a return on your Ethereum. I have some staked, but also that means that when you take this Ethereum and you put into the ETFs, it's not staked.
Right.
So that means that it's almost like a dividend stock, right? Is that dividend stocks are worth more because they pay dividends. But if you move a dividend stock somewhere else, you say it doesn't pay dividends, the value of it drops. So that's what's going to happen with Ethereum. They're saying is that the Ethereum that are in these ETFs are not going to have as much value as the Ethereum that's outside the ETFs because you can use that Ethereum that's outside to stake. So I think that the perception of Ethereum and that you are able to stake is going to override any kind of objections to that Ethereum ETF. And I think they're still going to do just as well as the Ethereum outside of it.
I think that is a great breakdown for people to understand, and I agree with you 100%. I don't see institutional investors worrying as much about staking. They're more concerned about how do we get into this market safely? How can we invest our money through these larger funds so we don't have to self-manage? And I don't think the staking is going to be as big of a deal because staking has generally really been predicated to people like us that are deeper in and looking for other ways to make money with our crypto. The average crypto investor is going to just put their money into Coinbase or public.com or one of those sites, let it, set it and forget it, hopefully make their money and at some point take profits and sell some off. So I think this is a great way to break that down.
I don't think anybody invests in a real estate investment trust, which is a similar type structure, and they think about the rents. They think about the appreciation of the property, right?
Yep.
That's what I think is going to happen with the Ethereum ETF.
So let's go into our last point today, and that is record inflows for Bitcoin ETFs, even amidst this market turbulence. And we've seen the largest inflows in a month. On July 8th, the U.S. listed spot Bitcoin ETFs saw $295 million in inflows, led by BlackRock and Fidelity, and then also Grayscale. And I think this really speaks to confidence in the market because they're seeing this drawdown in price. They look at it, the big institutional investors look at this as a big opportunity because lower price, they can get in cheaper, they can get more Bitcoin, and I think it's business as usual for them. And the retail investors are the one that let the short-term volatility get to them. They get shaken out and they sit on the sidelines. So I think this is really great news moving forward through all of this market volatility to be able to see this kind of movement in the inflows for these ETFs.
Yeah, so I think that's a great vote of confidence that we're seeing these inflows come in back into Bitcoin. And it goes back to what we say is that retail panics, the big investors, the rich, the elite, and the wealthy, the institutions, they buy in.
Yep.
Because they see it for the huge opportunity that's there. Is that obviously Bitcoin's been oversold, right? Because of the concerns over the market. Yep. Even technical analysis shows us that it's over. It's a perfect opportunity for these big investors, investment banks, institutions to get in. That's what they've been doing. So I'm really happy to see this, and it should be a sign to people that Bitcoin has a huge future ahead, right? Yeah. And that's the reason why they're picking it up at these low prices.
Yeah. I just think that people are making a huge mistake. And that is why here and in all of my content, my personal content, I am always preaching to the mountaintops that everyone needs to have a long-term investment thesis. Otherwise, you're just a gambler. And it just will help people understand better how to be able to maneuver these markets and understand where they're going next and how to invest in them correctly. And I think it's so important for everyone to understand that because we're always going to deal with volatility. And I think that down the road, will crypto become less volatile? Sure. In 2 to 3, 5 years, we'll see it to be more mainstream. And as more adoption happens, there will be less volatility. I agree with that. We will also have a lot different landscape in cryptocurrency. That is why I look at opportunities like right now, these drawdowns, as huge potential for us to be buying more of the XRPs, the Ethereum, Bitcoin, Chainlink, all of the projects that we really love for the future. We're just getting a discount. That's all it is. This is a discount on the future for us. And that's why I don't look at this as a scary moment in time. I look at it as a great opportunity to buy more. So yes, we've had a bumpy ride. I think everything is going business as usual. I see a lot of opportunities in the markets, and I just think that this is the time. Everyone needs to realize, buckle down, when in doubt, zoom out, and not have knee-jerk reactions, because this is when wealth is built. We've said it over and over again, and everyone just needs to remember that, do their homework, and always remember to stay calm during these turbulent markets. We thank each and every one of you for joining every week with us here at the Crypto Trends Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Crypto Trends Podcast, on Apple and Spotify, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you for joining us. Please share the podcast with a friend. Give us that 5-star review. If you have anyone, friends, family, your barber, it doesn't matter. Share this podcast with them so they can stay on top of all the crazy things happening and the opportunities happening in the crypto world. Thank you all for coming.